Leader will be David L. Weiss. David is the author of To the Tune of a Welcoming God, Lyrical Reflections on Sexuality, Spirituality, and the Whiteness of God's Welcome. He and Margaret have a blended family of 5 children, 5 grandchildren, and a pair of international high school students and assorted animals that approximate a peaceable kingdom. Please welcome David L. Weiss.
Thank you. I'm especially happy to be reading here tonight since this is my neighborhood library. And the piece that I'm reading, which is a reflection on my experience as an election judge, is actually an experience then that happened, would have been last August, so not quite a year ago, at the LEAP Academy, which used to be the Wilson Middle School. So this piece, it appears on page 180 if you have an almanac with you, and I call your attention to that because the almanac editors commissioned a gorgeous piece of art that matches this. So you should find a copy of the almanac and check it out. It's titled The Fantastic Four. Okay, I am not a superhero, but I will lay claim to something more than mere delusions of grandeur. Like the superheroes of our imagination, I am an otherwise ordinary-looking individual, and like them, on occasion I manifest extraordinary powers to preserve our freedom and democracy. So it was that 4 of us circled ourselves in the early dawn at the edge of an empty St. Paul parking lot on a Tuesday morning in August. The gentle breeze and clear skies seemed innocuous, but the stillness might have signaled to an attentive onlooker that something unusual, something extraordinary was about to happen. And then it did. Our leader, her red hair beckoning flames of morning sun, spoke first, and her words called the rest of our voices forth into an incantation fit for flying capes and masked crusaders. I solemnly swear that I will perform the duties of election judge according to the law and the best of my ability, and will diligently endeavor to prevent fraud, deceit, and abuse in conducting this election. I will perform my duties in a fair and impartial manner and not attempt to create an advantage for my party or any candidate. Oh, you say. No, not oh. In the vivid vocabulary of Vice President Joe Biden, this is a big effing deal. I mean, 4 of us, complete strangers, meet in an empty school parking lot at 6 a.m., and 30 minutes later engage ourselves in a ritual recitation that transforms us from mere neighbors into stewards of democracy. With these words, we become keepers of an electoral process for which many around the globe still yearn. True, mostly we just push papers, register new voters, collect signatures in the registration roster, hand out receipts at one table, and then collect them at the very next table in exchange for a ballot. And we see to it that the ballots duly marked make their way into the big black box that today becomes the voice of our combined citizenship. So capes, tights, and masks would probably be overkill. But on this day, in the humble and sporadic, it was a primary election after all, procession of citizens who cast their votes, the highest ideals of our democracy are being practiced. Setting campaign rhetoric aside, but with competing visions of the common good, still claiming our silent allegiances, on this day we do something all too uncommon on our planet. We settle our differences peacefully. And on this day, as the sun rises, a whole assortment of us step out of our otherwise ordinary lives to become election judges for a day. If superhero is an overstatement, it is only just barely so. After all, in a democracy, the real superpower is helping to ensure that every vote, every voice is heard. I'm going to read one other piece tonight, and this relates to my bigger passion. Satish mentioned when he introduced me, I have a book out called To the Tune of a Welcoming God, and it's a series of reflections encouraging faith communities to become welcoming to LGBT persons. This past March, I was privileged to go on a 2-week trip to Uganda to meet with faith leaders and LGBT activists in Uganda. I kept a blog while I was there, and so this is an entry from my blog. It's entitled Sunday with Kuchus. Kuchu is a word in Uganda that serves kind of like our word queer. It's not a derogatory term, but it's a self-claimed umbrella term for anybody who's a member of the LGBTIQ community in Uganda. They refer to themselves as Kuchus. So this is the blog entry. Sunday with Kuchus. It is late here, after 1:30, and I need to be up early and ready to go at 6:30 in the morning. Yikes. But I need to get these words out before I sleep. I am so much like Emily in our town today. Somewhere she cries out, "Stop, it's all moving so fast. Does anyone ever realize life while they live it? Every minute?" And the stage manager replies with a weary acknowledgement, "No." Then he adds, "Saints and poets, maybe. They do some." And here it is, 1:30 in the morning, and as I write, my shoulders shake, my cheeks are wet, and I can barely see through the tears. It is so full. There is too much to take in, but it is rushing in, and I don't want to lose any of it, so I just weep. This afternoon began at Reverend Mark's city office, where we have come to gather with a handful of grassroots Kuchu activists for a meeting about the challenges they face in doing their work. We returned to the city after the morning worship in the rural outskirts, but you would never know it from the roads we were on, which matched the road to and from Kuwanda, rut for rut. Reverend Mark's office is a simple cement building. Spartan is a gracious word. Office space, meeting space, a simple kitchen, and a bathroom. We were among the first to arrive. Long Jones, whom I'd met yesterday, was already there. So was Satish, and she, or should it be he, is mostly the reason for my tears. I had never met her, but I recognized her immediately from the film Call Me Kuchu, in which she tells of being subjected to violent corrective rape as a teenager, becoming both pregnant and HIV positive as a result, and then wrestling beyond this grief to come to terms first with being lesbian and more recently with her identity as a trans man, a process in which she is still immersed. And so I am unsure whether it's up to me to switch pronouns without being invited or asked to do so. Others in the room who know her have joked about her being defiantly in between. Satish and I sat alone in a room for a short while, and I explained who I was and why I had come. And she melted with gratitude. She swelled with joy, and I had not expected this. Her story had touched me deeply. My simple tale of ally on adventure in Africa had no reason to move her as well, but there she was beaming at me just because I came. And so it seemed a small gesture to offer her a copy of my book. It was not small at all. Satish exploded with joy. She was beside herself with glee. She exclaimed in her crisp British African accent, oh, you do not know, but I so love to read. Oh, thank you. And it was all I could do then to hold back the tears that stream so freely now. I said simply, well, you are so welcome. Before long, the room filled and then some. Maybe 20 Kuchus had come. I will not try to capture the conversation. Suffice to say that for 4 hours, it seemed like justice flowing down like mighty waters. Well, not always, but it was certainly animated. People grabbed the floor and held on to it long after their turn had expired. They debated the causes behind the frustrations they face. People shouted less in anger than in sheer passion. 2 complaints surfaced repeatedly. One, that the big and well-known LGBT groups in Uganda tended to hog the funding stream to themselves and shut out of the process those who are working in the trenches with the most marginalized of all. And these were the activists in the room. The other concern that too many times persons in the Kuchu community itself, no doubt because of the very desperation that frames and distorts their lives, act with less than the best character. That there are too many times that Kuchus undo their own progress by acting out of selfishness, greed, or stupidity. Human vices that are freely available to all of us, but which can be triggered especially when life is desperate. I was the fly on the wall. This was not my room to speak in, merely to listen and learn. But oh my, so much pathos, so much passion, so much suffering, and so much hope. And as the evening wore down to its end, person after person came up to me and thanked me for being there. No, I don't think you understand. I mean hero after hero, person after person whose life is in daily danger, thanked me for spending a few days in Africa. No, it is too much. I don't deserve all this thanks. I am not worthy to be here among these people. And I remember tonight the words I wrote 16 years ago in my own coming out piece as an ally. I had written, I see now that if God keeps silent in the face of your anguish, it is only because I wouldn't lend God the use of my words. Well, here they are. And later, at the end of that initial coming out declaration, I added, against all this that you know so well, I can offer only words. But maybe this is precisely what I have not done often enough or loud enough or long enough. And here it is 16 years later, and I'm still writing, still talking, and tonight I'm weeping too, because such a beautiful, tragic, holy person as Satish squealed in joy over me. Saints and poets, maybe, they do some. But it hurts and it heals, and tonight it flows down my cheeks like